This is the Blood Red Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red Podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. Liverpool United then in their fight for a top four finish, despite Mane's handshake snub at Old Trafford. And up next, Big Sam's Baggies as the Reds head to the Hawthorns, aiming to turn up the heat on those above. We'll preview the action and, of course, have our team selector and match predictions to come as well. Here to get into it all, we have David Lynch, Theo Squires and Matt Addison. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Lynchy, I'll come to you first up. And how pivotal was that win and the manner of the win over Manchester United at Old Trafford?
Yeah, it felt absolutely humongous. I mean, we did a couple of previews for it, basically, didn't we? Sort of not knowing when it was going to end up being played. And I remember both times sort of the mood around it being, sort of negative and not really expecting Liverpool to do much, to be honest. And, they've been, even when they've been absolutely flying in the league and coming up against some poor United sides in recent years, they haven't really done very well there at all. So going there, having had all the issues they've had this season and United doing, they're not necessarily going to win the league worthy at any point, but they're firmly in second place and deservedly so. So you just thought that this was going to be another difficult night. And then, when Fernandes scores early on as well, it makes it look even worse. But just the incredible strength of character, I think, that Liverpool showed to sort of shrug off that early setback. And there was a few setbacks during the game, actually, that they did well to overcome. And I think that could be hugely pivotal, because I just think in the context of this season where so much could go wrong, basically everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong at times. Not just the injuries, but I think some of the mad VAR calls or just tight calls that have gone against them in moments and been very unfortunate. And I think it would have been so easy to let heads drop in that moment last night, but to come back and get a win, and in the end a very feels like a convincing win. I think that could really, really bode well for them going into these last games. You just feel like the momentum is with Liverpool now, isn't it? And if you're Leicester and Chelsea, having watched that result play out last night, I think you'd be getting very nervous knowing they've got to play each other.
Yeah, get your calculators at the ready, lads, because we are going to try and go through some permutations in a bit. But Theo, it was a 7-year itch that needed scratching, Jurgen Klopp's wait for a win at Old Trafford, wasn't it? And thankfully got it. And now, as Lynchy says there, I think very much the confidence and everything sort of seems to be going Liverpool's way.
Yeah, it's about time that it's gone Liverpool's way. You've had so many games this season where they've thrown away points where they shouldn't have thrown them away, and it's just not gone for them. And it seems finally they've got this run of form and it's coming together. It's almost gone under the radar a little bit that they've been unbeaten for, 6-7 games, and the only games they dropped points in, Leeds, Newcastle, were late equalisers, and that was when they had a midfielder at centre-back again. Playing centre-backs there, it's done the business, and what a win it could be, what a confidence boost it can be for Liverpool. Like going into these last 3 games, we've said the whole way along the running, Liverpool's is favourable. The only thing that is counting against Liverpool is the fixtures. What they've done in these earlier in the season, where drop points when they shouldn't drop points, when you wouldn't expect them to drop points. And that's why I think we've said on pods before, out the last 4 or 5 games, weren't really worried about United, because Liverpool's best performance in recent weeks was at Arsenal. Like, if they went there and it was just a Liverpool defeat, that's what you expect. It was the one you could take out of the equation, because it shouldn't have been the one that would cost them anything. It was going to be an added bonus. It was the fact that they can not turn up against the likes of Burnley, Fulham, West Brom, all these teams we've seen at some point during the season. And now hopefully they can finish strongly, because it is almost back in their hands. And like, we've got Chelsea and Leicester playing each other next week. Well, Liverpool will be there not knowing really which way they want that one to go, and just got to focus on doing the job themselves. And it seems finally at the right stage, Klopp's got them doing that, taking it game at a game. They might not have a trophy up for grabs this season. They might not have a Champions League final or anything, but United was their cup final. Now it's finishing the season in style and making sure they can at least get that Champions League football next season.
Yeah, definitely. There's been Arsenal home and away in the league, Matt. The home games with Leicester and Wolves as well that have been comprehensive and flickers of signs of what this Liverpool side can do. But was that win last night the performance of the season, do you think?
Quite possibly, yeah, with everything that's riding on it. The fact that Manchester United have obviously made as many changes as what they did. You thought they would probably be fresh. I think obviously there was a lot more riding on it for Liverpool. It certainly mattered a lot more to them than it did for United. But even so, I think Manchester United have generally been very good this season. As David says, when they go a goal in front in the game, you do start to worry. Even when Marcus Rashford gets that one back, you think, is this turning against Liverpool again? But they just really did perform well. I think that the two centre-backs were fantastic. I think Nat Phillips will get a lot of praise because he was involved in almost every possible way that a centre-back could be during that game. But I thought Reece Williams was excellent alongside him as well. I think, we shouldn't forget how young and inexperienced both of those two players are. And for Liverpool to sort of turn up and put in a performance like that when it matters, it is as good as in their hands now. Obviously, goal difference can come into it. It depends on what happens. But I've said it last night. I've said it throughout today. As long as Liverpool win their final 3 games, they'll be in the Champions League. I'm pretty sure of that. So it's all in their hands. If you'd have said that to me 2 or 3 weeks ago, I honestly would have laughed because it just didn't feel like things were going Liverpool's way. But the fact that Arsenal did them a favour, then obviously there's been other results that maybe you wouldn't have expected. It's kind of all coming into place for Liverpool. And I think the most important thing for me is that this season has obviously been a disappointment from a Liverpool perspective. We expected far more. But as long as they get into the top 4, you can kind of write off this season and just go, well, next season we go again. If they didn't get into the Champions League or they don't get into the Champions League, suddenly it then has a knock-on impact on what happens next season. But as long as they get that 4th spot, I think next season suddenly just becomes infinitely more enjoyable, and we can all look forward to a summer and all the things that will happen, because things essentially for Liverpool next season, obviously not quite as champions, but it will kind of reset to what it was 12 months ago.
The summer will still happen, Matt. The sun will still come out. Don't worry. If they don't get top 4, there still will be a summer. I'll let you take the floor.
I was just going to build on what you said about the centre-backs there. Well, you think Gary Neville was whining last night, wasn't he, about Harry Maguire, and obviously the Sky cameras kept going to him on the crutches. So, it's such a poor thing for United being out with Harry Maguire as their star centre-back and all this. Well, Bailly and Lindelof, they must have cost them, 60, 70 million combined. They've played for big European teams. They've played in European Championships, Africa Cup of Nations, whatever. They're big international players. Before this season, Reece Williams, Conference North, that was it. Nat Phillips, Bundesliga 2, that was it. And which looked like the better partnership there. Like these two United lads, they've been teammates for a number of years now in a senior team. And you think this is why Liverpool's season has fallen apart, because they've had to resort to Phillips and Williams, because they've been without Van Dijk all season, without Gomez, without Matip. People will have a go at Liverpool and say, you're just moaning, you're blaming it on the injuries. But if you've got United, when they've really got nothing left to play for, having a go at their own injuries, when it's just one player at the back, when they've got plenty of cover there, that's why they're second and Liverpool are not. It just shows how well Liverpool can regroup next season. And it's funny when they've had so few options throughout the campaign. Maybe Jurgen Klopp's now going to be on the other side of it in the summer. When you've got those 3 players back, maybe you sign Konate, maybe you sign Kabak, and you've still got Phillips there, you've still got Williams there. He's suddenly got a flurry of options. And it's like, what do you do? Because it wouldn't be fair to either of them to have to go from being first choice for Liverpool and essentially potentially getting them into the Champions League to not even making the bench for games next season.
Yeah, definitely. And Reece Williams seems to have come on an awful lot in a very short amount of time. Dropping out of the side, looks as though he's been away and bulked himself up and come back in, and you forget he is only 20, so plenty of room for development with him. But before we get on to talking about the centre-backs a bit more, Dave, just want to ask you about sort of the imagery at the end of the game, Mohamed Salah scoring that goal and the celebration. Lots been said this year about Mohamed Salah and that he's not bothered if he moves on, he's flirting and trying to attract the interest of Barcelona and Real Madrid. With the captain's armband on, scoring the final goal, he looked like a player who really cared to me. And I suppose the defining image of the title win is him celebrating in front of the Kop. If Liverpool finish 4th, those images at Old Trafford might be defining for this season.
Yeah, I thought he fully deserved that goal because he was absolutely phenomenal last night for me. I thought just every element of his play in terms of making it stick, and he gave Luke Shaw, who I think's really come on this season, had a really, really strong season, been one of United's best players. I think he just gave him an absolutely torrid night, really, out on that side of the pitch. So yeah, you can't accuse him of his heart not being in it or anything like that. I don't think any of those. I think those suggestions are completely wide of the mark, and his goal tally again is utterly phenomenal. So yeah, I think a lot of the stuff about will he move on and things like that is slightly overblown. I think Liverpool do need to sort of maybe get a move on with sorting that contract situation. Obviously, you don't want to get to a point where you're 2 years remaining and you create those situations where there's a little bit of doubt over his future. But so I think that's something they need to resolve. But I think looking at his performance this season in comparison to, say, Sadio Mane and Firmino, I think he's the one who looks like he's got guarantee of more great years ahead of him. He keeps himself in unbelievable shape, doesn't he? And which we obviously saw when he took his shirt off against United last season. So he's in great nick, a player with real desire to keep improving. And I think, it was just good to see him get that goal, because I think he did deserve it for his overall performance, and just sort of underlined, why he's so important to Liverpool and will be for the coming years. So they do need to get him tied down.
Yeah, Matt, he's level now with Harry Kane on 21 goals. Came out and said the other week about how he would swap any golden boot for sort of team accolades. Well, I suppose the incentive's there. Get yourself the golden boot, because if you pull clear of Harry Kane and get yourself maybe 24, 25 goals, likelihood is you're going to be firing Liverpool to the Champions League anyway. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, it's just phenomenal, isn't it? We spoke about it last night in terms of Liverpool haven't necessarily created as many chances as what they have done in the past, but it's Mohamed Salah who's Liverpool's talisman. When other players maybe have not been at their best, we've spoken about Mane, about Firmino. Salah has just effectively done the same as what he's done in every other season, despite all of the chaos that's going on around him. So I can't speak highly enough about him. I think, the suggestion from certain quarters in the last couple of months has been that maybe Liverpool could look to repeat what they did with Coutinho and maybe move him on. I mean, I don't think that's feasible anyway. I don't think anyone's got the sort of money that would, tempt Liverpool to sell him. But I just think it's not quite so easy to do that. When you look at 30 goals, if you take those 30 goals out of Liverpool this season and try and replace it with another player, I mean, it's just almost impossible to do that, I think. So, yeah, he's been unbelievable again this season. I think, there's no reason to think that he can't do that, for another 3 or 4 seasons. You look at the shape he's in, the physique, everything about him, to me, says that he can carry on doing pretty much what he's doing now for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons. And I think if Liverpool can tie him down, I'm sure they will do that. And for me, it's an absolute no-brainer, because you just would not even want to think about where Liverpool would be without him this season. Without his goals, Liverpool would be without even having a hope of being in the top 4.
I think I forgot to mention as well, sort of the one thing I really liked about his goal is he's the one putting Matic under pressure, sprinting back into his own half, putting Matic under pressure, forces him into a heavy touch, and that is where Liverpool win the ball from that. It gets moved to Curtis Jones, and then all of a sudden Salah he's already on the move in the other direction as well. So to be involved on both sides of the ball in that goal, I think just summed up his performance, absolutely worked his socks off, as well as showing his quality going forward.
I think you sold him a little bit short there, Matt, saying 4 years. If you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, he's still going strong after 6, 7 years older. I reckon you can get a bit more out of Salah there. It's just whether he's up to the Premier League for that long, because as we've all said, he's in such good shape. Obviously, he doesn't touch alcohol and all that. And I think with the contract situation, it's become a chess game with Liverpool now. Like, obviously, when we've had these reports of him doing interviews with the Spanish media, they're focused on the Real Madrid and the Barcelona lines. But if you look at it as well, he's definitely hinted about a new contract too. And it's one where, Liverpool are in this situation now where clubs can't afford him. Like Barcelona, Real Madrid, we know how messed up they are financially. If they want Mohamed Salah, they have to sell a lot of players to finance a move. And it's one where, Salah can't really go anywhere. Like if these top teams want him, they have to stump up the cash. And with coronavirus and all that, it's just not there in the market. So obviously he'll want a new contract. He'll know he's in the best place to keep challenging for trophies at Liverpool under one of the best managers in the world. And then Liverpool are in this situation where their own finances are a bit iffy. They've still got to work out how it all stands. And it's like, do you want to give him a massive pay rise when he's still under contract for a couple of years? And I'm pretty sure there are clauses in this deal as well. You've got to do match highest earner. So like if he gets one, Van Dijk's got to get one, and vice versa there. So that'll probably be why they're being patient about it, taking their time to see the situations they're in. And then if a big offer does come in, maybe they will consider it. But at the same time, you're going to keep getting this performances from him for another 3-4 years at least. And he could still be delivering in the Premier League 5-6 years down the line, because he is just that sort of player. He is a phenomenal.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's move on, though. We've got a few individuals to talk about, and I want to talk about the 2 centre-halves. We spoke before the game, I know, about how Manchester United are very good at coming from behind, and I saw on Twitter a few Liverpool fans in jest afterwards saying that Phillips took that one out of the equation by deflecting the Fernandes effort, albeit it was already going in. But what a performance from Nat Phillips. obviously a few people pinning question marks over him for the opener for Manchester United, but he nearly won a penalty that was ruled out for VAR, then kept a move alive for Diogo Jota's equaliser, and then at 3-2, Lynchy with a brilliant match-winning block on the line.
Yeah, I think what I quite liked actually in the aftermath of the opening goal was he was having a go at Fabinho, and absolutely rightly so, to be honest. Fabinho vacates the space in front of Fernandes, which creates that opportunity to get a shot away, and then if you Phillips and you're back on the line and he's in the right position there to be back tucked in a situation like that, if Fabinho moves out the way in the way he does, that just opens things up. So he knew in that moment really that he wasn't to blame for that. He had the confidence to give it down the banks to someone who's a far more experienced player than him, and then but he still seemed to almost take it personally that he'd been involved in the goal, and great feat, wasn't it, to set up the goal for Jota. That was really nice to see. He's not really something you'd associate Nat Phillips with. Really, he's sort of seen as an uncompromising defender, but it was good feat to move across the box and get that shot away, and then, like you say, that block on the line. So he was really the story of the match, and we keep saying this, but it really is. If you'd have said back in August that Nat Phillips would be this prominent a part of the Liverpool side, or in a win at Old Trafford at this point of the season, you would have laughed. He was so far down the pecking order, so close he came to moving to Swansea as well prior to that. So yeah, it's just a fantastic story, and I thought a phenomenal performance that sort of sums up what he's been putting in recently, because this isn't a sort of exception. He wasn't just, he wasn't better than usual at Old Trafford. I think he's just been playing consistently well for a while, and he's made Jurgen Klopp's mind up about keeping settled centre-halves in the centre-half position rather than dropping Fabinho back there. I think Nat Phillips' position now is, alongside Fabinho being in front of him, the non-negotiable. It's all about who that partner is, maybe when Kabak comes back to fitness. So yeah, good on the lad. It's been really a story of the season. It'd be great to see if he can just top it off by helping Liverpool into the top four.
Yeah, he might not be, Theo, a Rolls Royce of a defender. Maybe more your Vauxhall Astra, steady, dependable, needs regular use and everything. You're not going to just leave him on the drive and then try and start him up and get him going. He feels like a player who needs to be regularly used, and with that happening for Liverpool, he's beginning to grow game on game. But I suppose it is one of those where it's kind of worked mutually beneficial for both. He's been able to be in the shop window, I suppose, to prove that he's more than up to Premier League standard now. I don't think that's probably within doubt. And Dave said he came close to moving to Swansea. I think Premier League sides will be eyeing him up now, even if he's not to stay at Liverpool for a great deal of time.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation off screen before, haven't we? Saying, well, you could imagine him perfectly fitting into a Burnley or a team like that, because he is just a defender who knows how to defend and loves to defend, and he's not changed the whole way throughout his career. Like, obviously, we know my former life at his former employers, so I've seen him first play when he was for the under-18s, the under-21s, and he's always been this same lad who would win every header, stick his body on the line, get on the ends of all these crosses into the box. So I remember a couple of games when I think it was Steve Walford, who, if you know him, he is Martin O'Neill's number 2 pretty much the whole way through his career, and he was Neil Lennon's number 2 at Bolton. And he was just one game, just in awe at Nat Phillips, basically clearing everything out of the box. And this was when he was, 18, a part-time player essentially at Bolton. And we're now seeing him do that exact same level at Old Trafford in the Premier League against Real Madrid in the Champions League. He is just, when you break it down to those basics, one of the best defenders you can get. And it's just when you get to the top clubs, you do need a bit more from players. And Liverpool probably still are that stage above him. When you've got Virgil van Dijk there, that's what the level Liverpool want to be at, and Nat Phillips isn't that. But this season, when they've been falling apart, conceding silly goals, they've had that lack of stability in the back, they've had to go back to basics, and he has been the perfect fit for that. Now it's a big decision to make whether Jurgen Klopp decides, yes, that is who I want as my fourth choice centre-back, because there are going to be games where we need players like that to defend and just to get games over the line, or if it's a time they go, well done, you've done a brilliant job for us. We can't imagine you've done anything to this level, but you've exceeded expectations. Now go on, get your move, go and play Premier League, and go and show why you're this good, because he's not going to get the game time he deserves at Liverpool when everyone's fully fit, but he has shown that he is more than capable of making it as a top flight defender. And we've seen in the past, Liverpool don't hold on to players if they know they're not going to play them, like Danny Ings, Lucas Leiva. They've gone on to do brilliantly at Southampton, at Lazio. Maybe Nat Phillips will be the next one.
Yeah, I think for me as well, Matt, the big point, I think we've probably got a fair few people watching and listening in thinking, well, he's been such a brilliant player this season. Why not keep him around? Why not save the money that would be spent on a centre-back and keep him about? Because he's shown what he can do this season. But I think for me, the thing comes with, as I said before, he's getting better game on game and feels like a player who needs to be regularly playing. Otherwise, those limitations, if he's coming in from the cold every so often, might get exposed. And as I say, probably as Theo mentioned, not going to get the regular game time really going forward once Gomez, Matip and Van Dijk are all fully fit.
Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, as soon as Van Dijk, Matip and Gomez come back, he's instantly at very, very best would be fourth choice, wouldn't it? And that's before you think about potential incomings in the summer. So for me, he's done brilliantly. You know, I don't want this to sort of take away from what he's done, because he's been an absolutely colossal part of Liverpool's season, certainly over the last 3 or 4 months when he's been playing regularly. As you say, he's been absolutely fantastic compared to what everybody, thought that he could reach in terms of his ceiling as a footballer. I think he's far exceeded the player that I thought he was, but there are still limitations with his game. There are still, things that you'd look at and think that Liverpool can get somebody who's better and can improve. And for me, I think he's got 12 months left on his contract this summer. I think the fact that he's played so regularly and will never play so regularly again says to me that if you can get, let's say, for instance, 10, 12 million for him this summer, which I think would be a reasonable sort of price for a team lower down the Premier League to do, I think you probably just got to sort of take that, to be honest. I think his sort of value as a player is never, ever going to be as high as what it is now. If you don't sell him this summer, I think you've kind of missed the boat. And I think Liverpool have maybe done that with a couple of players in the past. I think possibly Divock Origi is one that we've spoken about. Harry Wilson is one. There's one or two other examples as well. I think Liverpool would be, for me, making a mistake if they weren't ruthless this summer and just said, thank you very much, go and enjoy yourself at another Premier League club. You've more than earned a move to a Premier League side rather than a Championship side. But for me, this summer, it's got to be the time to sort of cash in, take the money whilst it's there and go again and improve. But at the same time, as I say, I don't want to take away from what he's done, because if Liverpool get into the top 4, he can take a huge slice of the credit for that.
Yeah, he's definitely, I think if Liverpool pull off this and finish in the top 4, he'll go down as a cult hero at Liverpool for definite. I think his contract situation, there was a bit of confusion, wasn't it? If it expired this summer, it doesn't. I think it's 2023, so 2 years left. He's probably at that highest sell-on point for Liverpool. David, we've got somehow 22 minutes into this podcast and not spoke about Trent Alexander-Arnold. How have we done that?
Yeah, what a performance. I think you're almost tempted, aren't you, because Gareth Southgate was there to say, oh, he's making a point. He wanted to put on the show for the England manager after being left out the squad last time. But to be honest, he's been in this form for a while, hasn't he? I think he's just been playing at this standard for a long, long time, which is why his omission from the England squad was such a shock. I think earlier in the season, he had a few troubles, and I think there's possibility that COVID did affect him in terms of his on-field performance and did some damage to him in the long term there and hurt him a little bit. But I think he's since the turn of the year has just come back in style. He's been putting in performances like that. He has for a long while, despite his tender years, has been sort of the main creator in this Liverpool team, hasn't he? So, and I think he just took that up to another level last night. Just showed what he's all about. It was just ridiculous, really, that a right back runs the game in the way that he does, and United never really sort of seemed to find a way of coping with him. I think that entire side of the pitch, really, him and Salah's link up, just that's why Shaw had such a poor game. He just couldn't get a control of that in any way, and wasn't really getting much help down that side either, I suppose. But it was Trent is not just the assist for the free kick goal that Firmino heads in, but he takes the shot that Firmino gets his second. He's just some of the balls in behind that he played. The one Sadio Mane plays Sadio Mane in behind. Jamie Carragher on commentary was hilarious. He's almost purring about it. It was so good, and that's someone who played football at the highest level. Talking about how great that was, and just how almost admiring it in the sense that we would watching a professional footballer, because it's that high level what he was doing. And yeah, he's just incredible. And you do forget how young he is. The fact that he's got to this point in his career, he's already got a Premier League and a Champions League under his belt, and he's going to get better is quite scary, really, because he's already ridiculous. And I think Gareth Southgate, watching that last night, if he ends up going to the Euros without Trent Alexander in his squad, then he's a fool, isn't he?
I was going to say, it might be pointing never coming to Anfield again if he doesn't take him, because he's in absolutely sublime form. Matt, I don't know if it was me just reading too much into it, but when Jorginho Wijnaldum went off, captain's armband was given to Trent and then pass on, and he looked a bit miffed at having to hand it over to Mohamed Salah. But then when Salah went off, he did get it, rather just rolled it up onto the sleeve thinking, yeah, that's it. Was that a glimpse into the future? Is he going to be a future Liverpool captain and hopefully, of course, lead the Reds on to many great heights?
Yeah, I think so. I think at some point he will be. I mean, there's other options. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, do we? There's still discussion from some quarters whether he should move into midfield, whether he should do this or that. But I think whatever the outcome is, he'll be at Liverpool for a long time. I think he's a hugely important player for what Jurgen Klopp does, but I think he will be long after Jurgen Klopp has left Liverpool as well. And yeah, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? There's an obvious sort of comparison with him being a local player, that sort of thing with Steven Gerrard. Can he go on and inspire Liverpool in the same way? And I don't think he'll have to do that, to be honest. I think the Liverpool team is so much better than the ones that Steven Gerrard played in generally, that he won't ever have to be the one that just drags Liverpool forward. But yeah, there's certainly there's captaincy material there. I don't think he would make any secret of that. If you asked him, I'm pretty sure he said in the past, hasn't he, that is his long-term ambition. That's what he wants to do. And I think it's almost inevitable, I think, that he will take on the captaincy at some point. But yeah, I'm sure Jordan Henderson will be here for a few more years yet, so he's going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, but you do feel, Theo, in terms of that leadership and that growing up that he's done this season, that actually, as much as it's been absolutely horrendous for Liverpool and the spine of the team's been ripped apart, there has been more onus and responsibility on him, not just for creating chances and running the game, but actually being one of those to plug gaps when things aren't going so well.
Yeah, it's one where if you look at him defensively, he's had some really solid games, and it's just because armchair fans look and go, well, he's not got 15 assists this season. They think he's had a poor season, and it's just, well, Liverpool have had a lot of gaps in the back. They've essentially gone back to a world without Virgil van Dijk, and we remember how poor that back line could be at times then. And Trent has had to sort of step forward and be this leader. And it's one where Liverpool have struggled to replace Van Dijk and replace Henderson. We know James Milner's not fit enough to play every game. He needs that run of games. And when he seems to be about to get that run of games, he'll come down with injury again. And it's going to be a huge learning curve for Trent that he's been able to come into this team and show signs of being that leader, because he's probably not ready to be a full-time Liverpool captain now. But that would have been last night, the first time he'd worn the armband in a Premier League game. And he made more of an impact in that game than he did in the Champions League back in December. So it's one where he can take it forward. And it's like, well, that's a taste, that, isn't it? This is what he's going to want to be doing for the next 15 years. It's not just lifting the Premier League, lifting the Champions League. It's having that armband on his sleeve and winning vital games against Manchester United at Old Trafford. He's a Liverpool fan. We know how much it means to him. And he'd have been so proud of that. He'll be disappointed with the season, as most that Liverpool squad. I think Nat Phillips is probably one of the only few who can't be too disappointed with how it's gone. But Trent can use it as another side of the coin to give him that overall experience. It's not going to be every season you're winning trophy after trophy, you're winning game after game, and it's these setbacks that make you stronger. And Liverpool will benefit from it long term. And as we've seen for the last couple of months, when he's recovered from these setbacks, he is in arguably the best form he's been in for 18 months. He's been incredible, and it just seems, as Lynchy said, Southgate dropped him at the complete wrong time. The fact that as soon as that happened, he's been up for Player of the Month of the Premier League. He scored an important goal against Villa. He's got some brilliant assists. He's better than any right back in the Premier League. He's better than any right back in Europe. He needs to get that praise again, and just because he's not getting the same number of assists, because Liverpool had to play a different style, it's criminal to just devalue his season because of that.
Yeah, Gary Neville was trying to crowbar Aaron Wan-Bissaka's name into the argument last night on commentary
No
disco,
chance.
which I found laughable, I have to say. But it all seemed rosy and also well after a 4-2 win at Old Trafford. Lynchy, Jurgen Klopp on the pitch post-match, celebrating his first win at Old Trafford. And then Sadio Mane didn't want to give him a high five.
Yeah, I believe Roy Keane wasn't happy about this either, was he?
No.
He's never happy, actually. So yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We have a tendency, because the real insight, or the majority of the insight we get into this group of players, or any group of players, I suppose, is that 90 minutes when you watch them playing Premier League or Champions League games. So we tend to read too much then, I suppose, into the small details, the little things that we notice, and that obviously has been according to Jurgen Klopp anyway, has been completely blown out of all proportion. He did admit that Mane maybe had a little bit of a reason to be aggrieved in that the decisions over the team was actually made quite late, and obviously Mane would have been in that starting lineup at Old Trafford, wouldn't he, if the game had been played when it was originally scheduled to be played. So I suppose that added to his disappointment that Diogo Jota started over him. So yeah, a bit frustrated, but I think we just got to look at this, and it's very easy to forget. We all like to imagine that it's all harmonious and these players are just best mates or a gang of friends who just go around the world beating every team they can, and it's all like that. But these are obviously, it's a professional environment. You're not always going to get on with people. I know Theo and Matt, for example, hate each other in the work environment. No,
that's why we're working from home. It's not
no, but it's a working environment as well, packed with, you know, uber competitive professional sportsmen. So, you know, you throw in the fact that he's been running around the pitch and he's maybe a little bit worked up as well, and it, you know, moments like that can happen. But Jurgen Klopp, I thought he was absolutely class in the press conference today in terms of just you know, nipping it in the bud and saying that he'd been like that as a player from time to time, and that Sadio Mane had shown him respect 5 million times over, and so that one situation, he's not going to make something big out of that. So hopefully that'll be the end of it, and I'm sure it will. You know, Mane as well, having known him, having worked at the club and been close to him, just working in journalistic terms, is, you know, not that sort of character really, a very sort of just a happy-go-lucky sort of, you know, no real anger or edge to him at all. So I think, quick chat with Jurgen Klopp today at training, and I'm sure that'll all be quickly resolved.
That's the thing, people with emotions. I remember him speaking before on the Champions League games last year, and he came into the room and he seemed so sort of almost taken away and starstruck with the amount of journalists in front of him. But Matt, it is one of those, isn't it? He had that chance. I think that may well have been playing on his mind that he missed that. He'd come into the game scoring 2 goals in his last 3, maybe just feeling as though he was getting his rhythm back, and he is dropped. But at the same time, you like to see it. Liverpool going for what they're going for, a lot on the line. You want players chomping at the bit.
Yeah, he cares, doesn't he? He wants to be in that team. He wants to be performing. And I think over the course of the last week or so, he's kind of admitted that it's been one of his worst seasons. He's not played anywhere near the level. And I think it's just a little bit of frustration, really. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that you want to see. And I'm sure, you know, had there not been another game in a couple of days' time, it might have become a little bit bigger than what it maybe is. I think, you know, there's a good chance that Sadio Mane will start on Sunday. There's a good chance that Sadio Mane will score on Sunday. And if he does that, that is literally the end of it. It does not matter one single bit. I mean, look, it's not the worst thing in the world. We know he's, you know, a very good character off the pitch. All of these Liverpool players are. That's why they're at the club. I did think it was a little bit unnecessary and not something that you want to see too frequently, because it can become something even though it probably isn't. But yeah, let's not make a meal out of it. I think as long as Liverpool are winning and, you know, the rest of the squad are clearly happy, this was just a one-off. It's not something we need to be concerned about or worried about. And as I say, as long as Liverpool win at the weekend, I'm sure it probably won't get mentioned again.
No, you say it's a one-off. He Turf Moor last year, he threw the water bottle down. But Crystal Palace, I think, this season at Selhurst Park as well, he wasn't happy about coming off the pitch. But Theo, again, I say it's one of those things, isn't it? Footballers all want to be playing all of the time, and when they aren't, they get rather upset. But he's got to channel that now into, much like Mohamed Salah, if he wants to win that golden boot, channel it into ensuring that it helps Liverpool to finish in the top 4. It's now for Sadio Mane. When you do get your next opportunity, whether it's a start or whether it's off the bench, you get a 1-on-1 like he did at Old Trafford, put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that Burnley one. Liverpool's elite players do have form for it, but that's why they're elite players, because they want to play every game, because they want to be the ones scoring the goals, making headlines. It's because he wants to fire Liverpool into the Champions League. And it's the same way you see like a Ronaldo or a Messi. They have the little hissy fits, don't they? If it doesn't go their way, it's what you want to see in these players. And it's just because Mane's having the season that he's having that there's that little bit more attention on him. But Liverpool signed Jota. There is that competition for places there now. Players are going to drop out. We've seen Salah have his bottom lip out when he's had to drop out. Mane does the same thing. Just because Bobby Firmino's pretty much always smiling, it's not the same for him. But Salah and Mane have always been like that. And it's about how they respond. I think when Salah was benched against Palace, he came on and scored 2, didn't he? He scored an absolute worldie. It would have been no surprise if Mane had come on and scored last night. And he was unlucky not to. Might have been a bit offside with that 1-on-1 when it was over the top. He'll probably start against West Brom because of the quick turnaround, as Matt said. He'll probably score because he is quietly back into form now, isn't he? If it's like 2 and 3 that you said, it was a great goal for him last week against Southampton. He'd have fancied his chances of starting against United, thinking, oh, now I'm in form again, I'm getting confident again. And when you think, well, Bobby Firmino hasn't been, but then you can't really blame Klopp's decision. Like, at the end of the day, Liverpool won at Old Trafford for the first time in 7 years. The front three that started all scored. Firmino got a brace despite his problems this season. It was a brilliant decision that paid off. And having Mane out the team, it's probably going to give him that fire in the belly. So we'll go and start against West Brom, put a hat-trick in or something, and challenge for the Golden Boot next season, and everything will be fine again. This is how you motivate players. It might just be that one-off incident when they show a bit of discontent, but that's going to happen hundreds of times across the season, not just when they're walking off the pitch. It's going to be at training. These are human beings. When they have a bad performance, it's not because he's necessarily annoyed at Jurgen Klopp and it's a sign of disrespect to him. It's because he's annoyed at himself and the fact that he's not having the season that he should be having. But it's just what makes them stronger. It's why they're playing for Liverpool in the Premier League and the Champions League rather than playing for, I don't know, teams at the bottom of the Premier League and the Football League, just happy to be there, picking up the wages, happy to get the odd goal here and there.
I was going to say, the reason why he's not still at Southampton, there's a reason Liverpool took him, and we've seen it plenty of times down the years. Right, let's get on to West Bromwich Albion then. And Lynchy, I'll start by saying, was the reverse fixture actually where it all started going wrong for Liverpool?
Yeah, it felt a little bit like that, didn't it? It's just, it was the first really of those performances that we've seen quite a few times since, really, in terms of, you know, getting that early lead, wasting chance after chance, and then conceding a late goal. You know, a goal that came from a bit of an aerial barrage as well. That's been typical. I mean, you look at the Newcastle and the Leeds games in particular, and they're very, very similar to that West Brom game. So yeah, I suppose a little bit the start of the decline really for Liverpool this season. So, you know, hopefully those players will see this as an opportunity to put things right, and they've just sort of ground the way back into form recently, haven't they? Really, in the build-up to that Manchester United game, it was sort of surprising when you looked at the form table how good Liverpool have been recently in terms of picking up results. And so to have added that United result, they really, really have put themselves in a great position to turn that into a run of all wins till the end of the season that will get them into fourth. So, yeah, I think that this West Brom game, they'll want to put it right. It's an interesting one just on the basis of, you know, does a team that's just been relegated, do they play with a little bit more freedom, or have they got that little bit less desire because Liverpool are fighting for something and West Brom aren't? So there's all that up in the air. But I do think it makes it, we'd like to think it makes it slightly easier that you're not coming up against a Sam Allardyce side that desperately needs the points, because he'd be trying every trick in the book, wouldn't he, to get the win. You know, and I'm sure he would be desperate to get a victory this time, no doubt about it. But the pressure's a little bit less on them in terms of needing it. So hopefully that plays slightly into Liverpool's hands, and they can, you know, show West Brom and prove why West Brom are a team that are being relegated. I think Liverpool have struggled in some of these games against lesser sides this season, so it's an opportunity to show that the reason that West Brom are going down is because they don't have the same levels of quality, and bouncing into that with the confidence of a win away at Manchester United, you really would like to think that Liverpool can turn it on and get a convincing win.
Yeah, Matt, West Brom obviously relegated after their defeat at Arsenal. Can't expect Sam Allardyce's side to go full sort of Joga Bonito and juggling the ball around, flicks and tricks and everything here and there. But it's one of those, isn't it? Relegated or not, you know what you're going to get with the Sam Allardyce side.
Yeah, I think so. There's going to be a lot of set pieces they're going to sit in at times, and that is something that Liverpool have struggled with, isn't it? The sort of breaking down of a low block and that sort of thing. But you know, I think if Liverpool don't beat West Brom, they don't deserve to be in the Champions League, do they? I mean, we've said that plenty of times this season, but as long as they do their job this week and they beat West Brom, they beat Burnley, and then they beat Crystal Palace, we're pretty certain that they'll be there or thereabouts. And obviously you don't win games by deserving to or being better than, you know, a certain team. But I think, you know, Liverpool, especially off the back of what happened last night in terms of, you know, going to Old Trafford, getting that, if you can't take confidence from that and move into this one and take your chances in this one, then, as I say, you just don't deserve to be in the Champions League. So for me, it's one of those, it's not going to be an easy game. I think it's going to be quite nervy. I think the first goal is enormous. I think, you know, the fact that they are relegated, I think if Liverpool do score first and just control it, as long as Liverpool don't sort of go 3-4, 5-0 up or something, I think West Brom would be fairly happy as long as they lose by the odd goal. So it's one of those where I think it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. Liverpool are going to have to take the chances that they get, because I don't think they're going to have absolutely loads of them. But it's a game that, let's be honest, Liverpool really should be able to find their way through.
Yeah, but they are a bit of a bogey team, aren't they? Theo, looking at it, only 2 wins in the last 9 meetings. And in terms of trips to the Hawthorns, only 1 win in 6 league visits. And of course, I think a lot of people probably remember that opening day of the Brendan Rodgers first season in charge, the 3-0 defeat there. It's not always been a good visit to the Hawthorns for the Reds.
This Liverpool team's so different to that Brendan Rodgers one. Why have you brought that up, Guy?
I'm just saying,
irrelevant.
I'm saying history. It's not.
You just can't forget about the
history. You want history. If you look at those teams, I'd imagine from the last 2, there's a 2-2 draw and there's a 1-1 draw. The 2-2 draw.
Actually, there was a 1-0 win between them.
Okay, there's a 1-0 win, blah, blah, blah. The 2 draws are before a Champions League final and before a Europa League final, when Liverpool have put a load of changes in, when you've got like Adam Bogdan in goal, Jordan Ibe playing, Danny Ings up front. Come on, you can't go through all this form record here and count this against Liverpool. It's a bogey ground when you play the reserves. Liverpool won't be playing the reserves. They're going for the Champions League now. They'll be playing their strongest 11, and you'd like to see them do the job. I'll be a bit kinder to you now. It would be a very Liverpool thing to do, to go and beat United and then to get turned over by a Sam Allardyce team. But you'd like to think they've got confidence and belief in them now. And you almost don't know what you're going to get from West Brom now, because a big part of their team this season has been loanees. And you get to that stage now where you're relegated, you're going to the Championship. Do you bother playing the loanees? Because like the likes of Maitland-Niles, he's not going to be playing for West Brom next season, is he? The lad up front, Diagno, he's not going to be playing there. They'll be going back to their parent clubs and wanting moves elsewhere. So it's whether you stick to the players you can have in the Championship. But then even then, Allardyce might not be there next season. So it's whether West Brom want to try and finish in style or not. It just depends if Liverpool turn up on the day. But yeah, history doesn't come into this. When you look at the teams that Liverpool put out in the past, it's a very different set of circumstances here. And you'd like to think they've got the ability to get the job done. And the fact that they've been unbeaten for these last run of games, they're going to have actual centre-backs at centre-back. It should make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Theo's team selector. Strongest 11 to Van Dijk, Gomez and Henderson all back for Theo, apparently. But
on crutches, that's still enough.
Let's crack on anyway. Let's get into the team selector. Alisson Becker in goal. Matt, I'll come to you for the back 4. How are you lining them up?
Well, assuming nobody else is back, I think the back 4 is the back 4. I don't think there's really too many opportunities to switch that around at the moment. I mean, we've spoken about Trent. I thought Robertson was excellent as well, actually, against Manchester United. We saw a little glimpse of the Andy Robertson that we saw last season, I thought, at times last night. So I think you've basically just got to say, until Ozan Kabak is back or anybody else is back, essentially it's those 4 for the final 3 games, I think.
Have Liverpool, on that, Dave, have Liverpool got to be prepared for Ozan Kabak not to be back this season? Because Jurgen Klopp, before the Manchester United game, has said, without obviously referring to Kabak, that injuries at this stage of the season, with only sort of 10 days left now, can basically be season-defining, even if they are only a small muscular problem. And, of course, he didn't feature at Old Trafford. Don't expect him really to feature here. So then he's got kind of a week to make sure that he's fit for certainly the Palace game, and only a few days to be ready for Burnley.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because, you know, Jurgen Klopp has spoke this season regularly, hasn't he, about the importance of rhythm and not chopping and changing his back line. Say that's been the crucial element that's undermined Liverpool, really, is having to make constant changes in defence. So you wonder whether, if he did get Kabak, back available, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because he's got that little bit of extra he's an international player. He's still young, but he's so experienced in terms of got a lot more games at the top level under his belt than Reece Williams. So I think he possibly would, if he was available, would possibly bring him in for the last couple of games, but we don't know where he's up to. Klopp hasn't really hinted about it. He's been keeping his cards close to his chest in terms of injuries recently, so it's tough to read. But I do think he will bring him back, but I don't expect him to be back from this one. There's no real suggestion that he will be. So if that's the case, I think that back 4 sort of picks itself, and you hope that Reece Williams and Nat Phillips can stand up to a slightly different test, because West Brom are going to just try and lump the ball in the box at every opportunity, aren't they? They're going to have to win a lot of headers, those two, and I think that maybe suits Phillips more than it does Williams. So it's a difficult test for both of them if we start again.
Yeah, Theo, unless you want to change the defence, what about the midfield for you?
I'm going to put Curtis Jones in. I think he's pretty much the only one who's available fit that you could put in, isn't he? Because Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita were missing last night. And then I'm just going to go back to my old argument that Wijnaldum's on his way out, so phase him out, look to the future, so Curtis Jones can take his place. But Liverpool don't really have many other options there at the moment. The fact that there were two keepers on the bench last night and there was Ben Woodburn on the bench last night shows how they are down to the bare bones. So Jones, Thiago and Fabinho in the midfield for me.
What about yourself, Matt, the midfield?
Yeah, Curtis Jones comes in for me as well. I was quite impressed with him when he came on last night, and I think there's just too many games at the moment not to make any changes. But I think it's going to be Thiago who sits out this one for me, just because I want to sort of keep him. I mean, he can come off the bench, but I want him for the last two games of the season. So I'm going to stick, obviously, with Fabinho. Wijnaldum can play as well, and Curtis Jones in there for me.
How does that sound to you, Dave?
Yeah, I think I maybe agree with Matt on that one, just because I think Thiago put in a lot of work in the last game, didn't he? I thought possibly that was his best game for Liverpool, actually, in terms of just thought both sides of the ball really, really impressive, and hopefully the start of something special for him at Liverpool. So maybe, thinking about that Burnley game coming up and the fact that fans will be back, you'll want his element of control in midfield and to really keep, limit their opportunities to lump the ball long. So I think you maybe, hold him back and with Jones having done so well off the bench at Old Trafford, maybe an opportunity for him to play. And I just can't see Wijnaldum ever being dropped. So it's I think he goes in there alongside Fabinho.
And I'll stay with you, Dave, for the attacking trio.
We probably got to get Sadio Mane back in there, haven't you? He's not a happy man being left out. So I did think before he went off, actually, I thought Jota seemed to tire a little bit. So maybe it's just a straight swap there, and you put Mane in for Jota and keep Firmino in because he's in form, and Salah's been in form for the entire season, hasn't he? So you can't drop him. So I think that maybe picks itself there.
Yeah, Firmino did score the last winner at the Hawthorns, Theo. So would you be inclined to keep him in the side as well?
I'm going for the tried and trusted front three. Jota out, Mane on the left. As I said before, there's not really many other options you can do at the moment, whether you put in a Shaqiri or an Origi, but you're going for the Champions League. You want to have, whilst you're going to have to make changes because of the turnaround, you need to go as strong as you can to get the points on the board. And that's the change, isn't it? Mane will come in, having sat out against United. And after scoring a brace, you can't drop Firmino. You just can't drop Salah when he is in the form. He's going for the golden boot. Liverpool get in the Champions League. He's going to be one scoring the goals to get them there.
Matt, what about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. In agreement. I think Sadio Mane will come in. I think the fact that he didn't play the other day suggests, or didn't start the other day, suggests that he will do now. And I think it's going to be 3 of those 4 for each of these games. I think it's just an area of the pitch where Liverpool can have a little bit of rotation, a little bit of freshening up without really changing too many things. So yeah, for me, it's Jota who has to come off the bench, Mane, Firmino and Salah.
Yeah, so what about result predictions then, guys? Dave, I'll come to you first up.
I think Liverpool are going to take great confidence that Manchester United win. So I'm going to, for the first time in a while, back them to actually win again and maybe say 2-0.
Yeah, I'll go along with 2-0. Matt, score?
Yeah, I think they're going to win. I'm going to go for 1-0. I think it's going to be incredibly nervy. I think they're going to miss chances, but I think Mohamed Salah is just about going to squeeze Liverpool through.
That injury time will be horrible, won't it, if it's 1-0 and Sam Allardyce's team just pumping the ball into the box.
Sam Johnston goes up for last-minute corners. United keeper trying to equalise.
Yeah, I just think it's inevitable. Liverpool have to win all 3 of their games, and at some point they're going to come under pressure. And I think you could make the case for all of the teams left, to be honest. I think there's narratives all over the place, isn't there? Burnley with fans back in the ground is going to be tough, but yeah, I think Sam Allardyce will do his best, certainly, to make it difficult.
And Theo, what about yourself for the score?
Let's go 2-1 Liverpool, just to be a bit different. Whilst they did play well against United, there were some dodgy defensive moments, shall we say. And West Brom, they're probably going to get one, aren't they? Big long balls into the box, you're going to make a mistake at some point. But I think Liverpool now are showing a bit of ability, a bit of talent. You'd like to think that with the goals on the board from Salah and Firmino, there's that confidence there to add to it. So Liverpool should have enough 2-1.
Yeah, great. Well, I said we were going to talk about permutations. I realised we've gone a bit over time, so we won't be able to get into it. Or maybe if Liverpool do get the win at the Hawthorns, we'll dedicate Monday's Blood Red to trying to do something
better on Monday anyway. It's the day before Leicester Chelsea.
I was going to say they've got dress rehearsal, haven't they, in the small form of the FA Cup final over the course of the weekend. But it is getting very, very close at the top end of the Premier League table in terms of the race for a top 4 finish. That's it from us on this edition of the Blood Red podcast. Do make sure to check out the link to the Blood Red newsletter in the description of the podcast. It takes only 30 seconds to sign up, and our best Blood Red content finding its way to you. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Matt Addison, Theo Squires and David Lynch, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.